I guess today we are fixing a Southwest Wind Power easy wire load controller for a 1000 watt wind turbine. Essentially, the issue with the unit is that it's not outputting power, although it is indicating that it is connected.
I just wanted to understand in terms of the research. You compared Mycoplasma genitalium with Mycoplasma pneumoniae and looked at what the, so-called essential genes that they might have had.
So first things first is taking all the knobs and switches off the faceplate. Once that can happen, then we can get the chassis open and see what's going on.
We work with both organisms. A very interesting relationship between these two organisms.
Okay, now that the unit's open, you can see the charge controller. This is where you can set the cutoff voltage for the wind turbine. And essentially this one ranges from 27 to 37 volts, which allows you to actually set your float or your equalize or whichever voltage you want to run for the charger. Now, once we get this removed, you'll be able to see the diodes. And of course, because this is a 3-phase generator, there is a bank of diodes which take all the phases and split them up. At the top of the unit you can see these resistors which I'm pointing at, and those resistors are a dump load. So essentially once the set point is reached for the charge controller, it starts dumping excess electricity into those resistors as opposed to the battery bank. Their ignorant was that there was a bad solder joint on the second diode's negative leg. What had happened was, in manufacturing, the leg hadn't actually adhered with the solder. Instead, the resins and the solder itself had pulled tight to the leg, which meant that over time, arcing and increase and decrease in temperature would actually cause the solder to pull away from the leg, cutting contact with it. So, essentially the tricky part here is heating them up enough that the solder will actually come loose, and because we're dealing with a large metallic surface, the heat's transferred away from the soldering site fairly quick, so it's very tricky to get the temperature just right.
When you compare this to cloning in vitro fertilization and some of the others where there has been the claim that, people are playing God. I mean, in what sense do both of those can be claimed to be for scientists or in some sense?
Okay, so now that we've got the connection cleaned, you can see that I'm resoldering it now.
Where does it rank with those?
This time we're making sure that the solder actually adheres to the leg of the diode.
living thing. It's not clear yet whether there's a universal or not, but certainly the pursuit, trying to understand what instruction would allow something to, if you will be alive, is a fundamental question. And to create something that could do this, that is new, that's never existed, is a landmark of this as well. So from the point of view of trying to understand the social, religious, philosophical ramifications, I'd rank it high. At the same time, trying to deliberate about it and think about it, or trying to diffuse, let's say, what's ranked as important from what might become the subject of more hysterical.
After the leg of the diode has been resoldered, there's a little bit of cleanup necessary as well. It did actually flow a lot once I got it flowing, and it did draw it down to the surface of the diode pack itself. So I did a little bit of filing and a little bit of chiseling, and essentially used some compressed air to clean it out, and a brush.
Essentially all of the proteins that we know would be essential for DNA replication and for making the ribosomes. These would be required for translating the genes to produce proteins. There are a few puzzling results that are in the paper with a few of these genes, but by and large, the genes in the main information transfer pathway replicating DNA.
Desoldering, I'm going to use an ESR meter to test the diode pack for proper functionality.
I just wanted to understand in terms of the research, you compared mycoplasma.
Then we're going to use the multimeter to check for good continuity.
And looked at
We want to make sure that this time that the solder actually adheres itself properly to the leg.
that they might have had in common word. And then you experimented pretty much with Mycoplasma pneumoniae, or did you also do work with genitalium? We worked with both organisms. A very interesting relationship between these two organisms.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going over the unit with a brush now. This will get rid of all little tiny bits of solder or filings. And then with the compressed air, that'll make sure that there's nothing left that might actually short out the diode pack. Because we're dealing with high current, we want to be extra safe here. Now we can put the charge controller back in place.
We took a pool of cells and knocked out genes randomly in such a way that
And essentially that's it. Once the circuit board's back in place, we can actually take the housing and put it back on, and she's good to go.
and we identified the site of these gene knockouts and made essentially a catalog of the genes that could be knocked out and still give a cell that can grow inside.
This is a Secret Medical Scientist newspaper. Question for Dr. At the conclusion of the paper, you say something saying the essential gene set is not the same as the minimal genome. It's clear that genes are individually dispensable, but are individually dispensable may not be simultaneously dispensable. Maybe just as a point of clarification.
see a bit of arcing on the back plate of the housing. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you like.